Hey guys, what's up? It's Darkmech here and welcome back to another video. I figured it was probably time to do an update in regards to the Blood DK guide since I put out in when BFA launched. Now, not a hell of a lot has actually changed from BFA inception to today, but a little bit has changed around our thought around the Azerite traits, stats and things like that since I first put out the guide coming from Legion to BFA. So today I'm going to cover off talent choices, Azerite traits, stats, rotation, core abilities, how you play the class from a baseline understanding, and anything else that I throw in there. So there's going to be timestamps in the description as well if you just want to skip to specific areas. So starting off, guys, we're going to start with spells and the core abilities of a Blood DK. So Marrowrend, this generates 3 charges of Bone Shield and it costs 2 runes to cast. This is the button you are going to press to apply Bone Shields. Heart Strike is a cleave, it costs 1 rune to use and it generates runic power. This is your main source of runic power generation. Blood Boil will apply the disease we have called Blood Plague to all enemies that it hits. Death Caress is a single application ability for Blood Plague. It's good for ranged pulls. It costs a rune to use though, so it's generally not going to be your option for spreading Blood Plague. Death and Decay places a circle on the ground that damages all enemies standing in it. It costs 1 rune to use, and using Heart Strike while standing inside your D&D will cause it to hit additional enemies. And the last big one is Death Strike. Now, Death Strike deals damage to the target and heals you for 25% of the damage taken in the last 5 seconds. Death Strike has a minimum heal of 7% of your maximum health, and it also applies a portion of that heal as a blood shield around you. So there are core abilities that you're going to have on your Blood DK. Then you've got utility options. Now your utility abilities are things like Mind Freeze. This is your ranged interrupt. Death Grip is a second taunt for you along with Dark Command. Death Grip will pull the target towards you if it can, and it will also taunt it. Death's Advance increases your movement speed by 30% for 8 seconds. It prevents you from being slowed or knocked back, which has huge application in Mythic Plus. Gorefiend's Grasp is your AoE grip, your mass grip. Raise Ally is your combat res. Asphyxiate is a single target stun, and Control Undead allows you to control undead mobs as pets. So then you've got your cooldowns. So cooldown wise, Blood DK Anti-Magic Shell. This absorbs 30% of your maximum health in magic damage over 5 seconds, and the absorb also generates runic power. Vampiric Blood increases your maximum health and amount of healing and absorbs taken by 30% for 10 seconds. So on a 1.5 minute CD, it is an amazing cooldown. Get used to using it. Icebound Fortitude reduces all damage taken by 30% for 8 seconds, and this is basically our oh shit button. Dancing Rune Weapon increases your parry chance by 40%, whilst also significantly increasing your damage and resource generation. Now, when you use Dancing Rune Weapon, if you hit Marrowrend, you're going to get 3 additional stacks of Bone Shield. So it's going to turn into 6 stacks of Bone Shield from 1 hit when Dancing Rune Weapon's up. Using Heart Strike is going to grant you 5 additional runic power when Dancing Rune Weapon is up. And if you use Blood Boil when Dancing Rune Weapon is up, you are going to double dot your targets with Blood Plague, which is great for AoE damage. Rune wise, guys, on a Blood DK, we have 6 runes. They regenerate over 10 seconds per rune, and that regeneration rate is reduced by haste. You can have 3 runes regenerating at the same time, and the general rule is you don't want to have more than 3 runes regenerating at once, but you always want to keep 3 on recharge if you're aiming for perfect play. Rotation wise, your general opener, if you are unaware, is going to go something along these lines. In a raid or a dungeon, you're going to pre-pot, then you are going to taunt the boss via Dark Command. You're going to Blood Drinker if that's the talent option you are using as you are closing the gap to the boss. If you are not using Blood Drinker, you'll be hitting Dancing Rune Weapon to get that GCD off before you actually encounter the boss. Then you're going to hit Marrowrend to get your Bone Shield stacks up. You can hit Blood Boil to put Blood Plague on the target. And then from here, you're going to play to a kind of priority system about what is required for you at that time. Now, if you are below 6 stacks of Bone Shield and your Bone Shield is about to expire, and when I say about to expire, I mean 5 seconds and under, you're going to hit Marrowrend. If you're above 6 stacks of Bone Shield and your Bone Shield is not going to expire, then you're going to be using Heart Strike. If you've taken a large damage swing, think Fetid Devour and a Thrash, over the last 5 seconds, you're going to use Death Strike. Are you near runic power capping? You're going to use Death Strike unless you are banking it up for a giant hit that's coming. Is your blood shield about to drop? You're going to use Death Strike. That is the baseline, most simplistic way I can explain the DK rotation to you. The biggest thing generally people do is waste Marrow Rend swings, and I am 100% guilty of being an idiot sometimes too. If you are over 6 stacks of Bone Shield and it's not going to expire, don't waste your resources in Marrow Rends, use them in Heart Strikes. Do you have Blood Plague up on the target? Make sure you're using Blood Boil. Keep your Blood Boil charges rolling, don't just let them sit there on 2. Remember, with Blood Boil, you're getting stacks of Hemostasis, which is a talent I'll go over soon, which amplifies your Death Strike. You want to keep those charges rolling and those stacks going. If you're running Blood Drinker, you'll always be using this off cooldown, as it's the biggest single target DPS increase you can gain from that. The heal isn't something to really worry about, or time, so you just want to be using it off CD. General rule of thumb around Death and Decay is if you're running into a 3+ mob pack, you are going to drop it straight away. Otherwise, what you're going to be doing is waiting on your Crimson Scourge procs to use your Death and Decay. Death and Decay costs 1 rune to use, remember? However, if you don't know what Crimson Scourge is, when Crimson Scourge procs, it resets the cooldown on Death and Decay and makes it a free cast. In regards to cooldowns, guys, and usage, Vampiric Blood, as I mentioned, has a 1.5 minute CD. It's a huge boost to survivability. Be really liberal in your application of using Vampiric Blood. Remember that you don't always need to be 10% HP and about to die before you use a cooldown. If you're running into like a 1.21 gigawatt pull, use a cooldown as soon as you grip or when you run in there to avoid getting turned into a pancake straight away. Be proactive in the use of your cooldowns rather than always reactive, even though Blood DK is a very reactive playstyle tank. So moving into the talent side of things now, guys. Talents wise, level 56 Blood Drinker and Heartbreaker are your choices on this row. If you're using your Blood DK to raid or single target encounter wise, obviously, Blood Drinker is going to be your best bet. It's your best single target option. If you're aiming to push high level Mythic Plus or Mythic Plus keys, where your DK is in a consistent situation of being surrounded by cleave, Heartbreaker is going to win out defensively here and be worth more than Blood Drinker. Level 57 Hemostasis is the only pick in this row. Rapid Decomposition became pretty junk-like after they removed the runic power component from it that we had in Legion, and Consumption is pretty much that ugly chick at the dance that nobody wants to fuck. Level 58 Ossuary is the only pick here. Ossuary provides you with a runic power discount, which in turn gives you more Death Strike. You also gain maximum runic power from this, which will enable you to bank up to 3 Death Strikes should you require as well. Foul Bulwark from its Legion version actually got a 50% nerf, forcing it to pretty much sit beside the fat chick named Consumption. And Tombstone is interesting. In beta, I thought Tombstone may have come into playstyles and things like that, but it's really not worth taking unless it's an extremely rare situation where you need some other form of cooldown and can cope with the complexity that it puts into the rotation. And even if you were after another survival option, you would probably be taking Rune Tap before you'd be taking Tombstone. Level 60 Will of the Necropolis is the default pick here, even after the 8.1 nerf. I did think Rune Tap might make a comeback here too, but it just hasn't eventuated that way. Rune Tap is a really strong defensive choice if and when it's required for an ability, but so far, in Mythic Plus and raiding situations, we haven't seen a situation where Rune Tap has been valued over Will of the Necropolis. We'll just have to wait and see how that goes. Rune Tap's not a bad option. It just so far in the grand scheme of generalization hasn't pulled above Will of the Necropolis. Level 75, there is some choice on this row. For Mythic Plus, Grip of the Dead is going to be your 100% default choice. It gives you a guaranteed, on-demand, controlled slow, which you can use to kite. It's valuable AF in Mythic Plus. For raiding, you can swap pending the encounter you're doing, Wraithwalk and Tightening Grasp. So Wraithwalk is a boost to our wheelchair mobility and is super useful in raids, while Tightening Grasp has value in heavy ad encounters where you may need to consistently group ads up. Level 90 Bloodworms is the 100% best pick on this row. It's also a DPS boost along with a survivability boost. Voracious sounded good on paper, but when it was mathed out, the leech was just very lackluster in comparison to damage dealt versus current health pool sizes. Level 100, choice pretty much becomes you on this one, guys. Red Thirst will be your default pick when it comes to the raid side of things. The cooldown reduction you gain from Red Thirst channeling into your Vampiric Blood is going to allow for great use and cooldown syncs with Vampiric Blood throughout encounters for survivability. For any progression-based encounters or things that you just don't maybe understand the mechanics of, or things you can get one shot for, Purgatory is going to be a fantastic choice for you. It's a great safety net. And in Mythic Plus, Bone Storm, even post 8.1 with its 5 cap nerf for healing, it's the damage from this in Mythic Plus is still ridiculous. The healing from it, even at cap, is still great in Mythic Plus as well. And it's the only DPS increase talent you have on this row. So yeah, Bone Storm for Mythic Plus. It is worth noting too, as I have been asked, don't use Bone Storm on single target. It is actually a slight DPS increase, but you are dumping all your runic power into that and kind of voiding yourself of other options when it's only legit a single number DPS increase. So single target, don't bother using Bone Storm. Moving into the Azerite traits side of things, guys, and this is where a lot has changed, especially for me from my first thoughts coming over from beta to where we are now. So one thing that you'll see change from 8.1 to 8.15 is that Azerite, the new Azerite gear, has a 5th ring on it now. And at the moment, ring 1 and 2 are pretty much packed with blood spec specific traits, and you kind of gain different traits as you move towards the inner ring. So ring 1 and 2 blood spec traits. The blood spec traits you're going to see are Bones of the Damned, Eternal Rune Weapon, Deep Cuts, Bloody Rune Blade, Marrow Blood, and Bone Spike Graveyard. Now the blood specific traits are actually pretty trap. They might look great on paper in some things, but how they actually play out in a live environment and once they've been theory crafted by people way smarter than me, just are very lackluster, and we're basically going to pick the best of a bad bunch. So your best choices from blood specific traits are going to probably end up being you are going to chase 1 Bones of the Damned, 1 Eternal Rune Weapon, and then either 1 Bloody Rune Blade or 1 Marrow Blood is probably going to be the way you're going to go. Deep Cuts is rubbish. Bone Spike Graveyard is also rubbish. Bones of the Damned we thought was going to be really good, and it has okay application in a raid environment. It has good application in really high level Mythic Plus keys, but otherwise it's just not as great as everyone chalked it up to be. And Bloody Rune Blade was the new Azerite trait that came in, which everyone was losing their mind to, but since it actually was implemented, it had a 10-second internal CD stuck on it, and it's actually not as great as we thought either. So pick the best of a bad bunch there, guys. Moving from the other rings, or what you're going to see, Thunderous Blast and Razan's Fury are our best DPS options. More balanced options you'll find on rings 2 inwards are going to be things like Bloodrite. This has really great value in Mythic Plus. There are 2 pieces with 2 bits of Bloodrite on it at the moment. It doesn't increase the proc chance, it increases what you get from that proc though. With 2 pieces of Bloodrite on PTR at the moment, when I get a proc, I'm getting 1628 haste from that proc. And the good thing with Bloodrite is when you kill something, it has a chance to refresh the proc. Not obviously fantastic on a raid boss per se, but in Mythic Plus, you're going to see much greater uptime on Bloodrite. Meticulous Scheming is another good option. It's another haste trait. You don't have any control over when it procs, but it is a great haste amount when it does proc. Secrets of the Deep is the other option. The Void droplets from this actually stack with the normal surging droplets you'll see, so you can get quite a bit of strength from this. You do need to actually move to collect the orbs though, which can be encounter specific or wherever you are, so just something to keep in mind there. Moving forward into the center of the ring, Heed My Call is the best DPS option while you can pick. Gut Ripper is going to be the best single target DPS option that you can pick on those rings. Other options you're going to see are ablative shielding. It's a really great option in Mythic Plus and Raids. Crystalline Carapace has great application in Mythic Plus and Raids also. You get great uptime on it, you get a nice little armor boost, and you get the damage from it as well. It's kind of like Gemhide 2.0. Winds of War is a really good defensive option against melee swings. Azurite Veins is great in Mythic Plus. Doesn't traverse very well into the raid environment. Life speed is worth mentioning. It's not bad. It's just not great. And I'd probably take the other options I listed if I had the choice between this and others. Finally, when we get into the fourth ring, you're going to start seeing things like Gemhide. It's not as great as what we all thought it was going to be. I definitely thought it was going to be the bee's knees. It's still really good, consistent uptime. Bulwark of the Masses is the standout for Mythic Plus if you can get it. Impassive Visage will stack and is a really decent heal. And Resounding Protection, which you can also stack, provides a really decent absorb. It is also worth mentioning from a profession standpoint, the engineering traits are really good as well. Absorbatron, Synaptic Spark Capacitor, and the Auto Self Cauterize really comes in handy, that one in particular, for Mythic Plus affixes with bleeds, or any mobs with bleeds as well. Stats wise, guys, Haste was the king in Legion, and when I made my original video in BFA, I thought everything had remained the same way. However, things have changed. Haste is no longer the be-all and end-all stat you are going to sacrifice things for. Our stat priority has actually changed now to Strength, Versatility, Haste, Crit, Mastery. And if you're in a raid environment, you could probably argue to swap Mastery and Crit around. Crit is going to get more value from Mythic Plus though. So what comes from this is pretty much item level overall. Item level overall is going to be the new rule aside from socketed items and rings pretty much. From 8.1, we got an armor nerf, and strength is the way that we claw that armor nerf back. So taking eye level overall actually is a survivability increase regardless of what stats are on there in regards to strength levels. When you start hitting your item level ceiling on gear, that's when you can start focusing on versatility over haste, over crit, over mastery. Crit, as I said, is going to have more value in Mythic Plus due to consistent melee swings, which is going to give you more value from the parry offered by crit. Haste is going to aid you though in your rotation feeling less clunky. It's going to lead to faster rune generation, which equals faster runic generation, which equals more death strikes and heart strikes, which equals more death strikes, via heart strikes and Mararens. But versatility is going to be your pinpoint for survivability, which also gives you damage output from versatility as well. So that is pretty much it from me, guys. I'm pretty sure I covered off everything that I wanted to coming into 8.1.5 and got all the updates in there. If I've missed anything, please let me know in the comments below. There are some new Azurite traits coming and I did check them out, though they were very lackluster. There's 3 coming in 8.1.5. But I didn't think much of them, so I haven't even bothered to mention them, sorry. If anything changes with that though, I will put it in the comments section below. Otherwise, thank you so much for taking the time to check out the video, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, come find me on Twitch, come join the Discord, and I will see you all next time. See you, fam.